For most of us Christians, the New Testament is more than enough evidence for not just the birth, the life, the teachings, but especially the crucifixion of Jesus and obviously the resurrection. But I don't think we often know, or let alone read, what other historical evidence there is for this event. So I'd like to remind us of them. We have a first century Jewish account. This is from Josephus. This is around the apostolic age, first century. Quote, "Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal man amongst us, that is, his fellow Jews, Josephus was a Jew, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold. And the tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct at this day." Now, if you go online or if you read commentaries, there's a lot of disputation, a lot of argumentation about obviously this quote, as there is, by the way, about the New Testament itself. As we know, there's a movement to disprove even that Jesus existed, that he was a historical person. But, I mean, you can check for yourself, make your mind up about this, but the evidence points that this is legitimate. It just happens to be talking about a figure that is surrounded by controversy, no matter who writes it or when it was written. So, but if that's not enough, let's look at the Greco-Roman writers of the first and second centuries. We have Tacitus, a Roman writer. Quote, "Christians derived their name from a man called Christ, who, during the reign of the Emperor Tiberius, had been executed by sentence of the procurator Pontius Pilate. The deadly superstition, thus checked for the moment, broke out afresh not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but also in the city of Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world meet and become popular." So as you can see, this is rather a biased historical record of Jews as a whole, and the area of Palestine, because it was such a problem for the Roman Empire, almost constant war and so on. Eventually they had to destroy the Jewish temple and kill, at least some historical sources put it at 1 million Jews. So it was like a Holocaust of that day. But despite the bias of Tacitus towards the Jews, his hatred almost towards the area itself, you can sort of see here that there is some historical information that we can glean from this. Here's Lucian of Samosata, actually around earlier period, 2nd century, maybe 1st. He wrote, "The one whom they still worship today, the man in Palestine who was crucified." And now we have a very famous graffiti, ancient graffiti from the first, as early as the first apostolic age, as late as the 3rd century, so 200 years or so. And this is called the worship of someone's god. Alexamenos is the inscription there. And as you can see, it's a figure on a cross with a, well, either a horse's head or a donkey's head, I think most historians see it as. But the point is that this records an interesting archaeological evidence of the crucifixion of someone who is hated by many Greco-Roman people of the time. Now, lastly, I want to share this. I don't think this is brought out much in reference to historical evidence, but it's called the Nazareth Inscription, and you can do a research on this online. But as far as I can tell, it has not been disproven. Now, this is a slab, a typical archaeological Greco-Roman slab with an inscription. And as you can see there, it's an edict of Caesar regarding the penalty that will come upon you if you either, as it says there, in the number 5, line 5, whether a person destroys or extracts, takes out, exhumes, or moves any burial place. It goes on to say that anyone who is caught doing this, it says in line 11, you are absolutely not to allow anyone to move those who have been entombed. But if someone does, I wish that violator to suffer capital punishment under the title of tomb breaker. Now, this is very interesting because it was found in Palestine. Some even say in Nazareth itself. That's why it's called Nazareth Inscription, but definitely near Jerusalem. And it's been proven that the dating matches the time of the early 1st century. But again, this is, it could be a very important find in terms of telling us not just about the death of Jesus, but obviously, most importantly, his resurrection.